Hi. Two of the points mentioned in Assessment 2 that we ask you to consider are to do with writing for an adult readership and to do with not writing erotica for erotica's sake or violence for violence sake. So I'd just like to explain those points more. First of all, some people think when we say that don't write for children, that's the same as saying don't write about children, and that's not so. I'm very happy to see a story in which a child is either the narrator or the main character, but the important thing is to remember that the end story is for an adult reader. Readership considerations are always important, and they should help guide a writer in regard to plot and theme and the conflicts that are dealt with and the kind of language that's used. A story for an adult, for instance, a writer can have fun with language and use literary devices to their full extent to convey the story or underpin it, whereas when writing for children we're more likely to use simpler, more direct expression. So those are the kinds of considerations that I want you to think about, please. When I say write for an adult reader, the reason I say that is because writing for a reader is an important thing for most writers. There's the old story about keeping one's ideal reader in mind as we write. So in our thinking, in our pre-planning, we should be thinking this story would really suit women of the age of 30 to 40, or solo mums between the age of 15 and 30, or guys who love adventure and outgoing things, or whatever. And then we kind of write almost instinctively, when we've got that ideal reader defined, in a way that will suit that particular readership. Some of that comes out of who we are. If I'm not, just look at me, but if I was a young adventurous guy who loved climbing mountains, that kind of voice would come through in my writing anyway. So some of it's kind of instinctive, but at other times, as a writer you have to make conscious choices about what kind of language you will use. So back to the point, don't get hung up that you can't include a child as a narrator or as a character in your story. You can, but the outcome of the story must suit an adult readership. And in this case, I'm your main reader, so think about that when you're writing. And the second point that I wanted to make a mention of was that I particularly say, please don't write erotica for erotica's sake, etc., etc. And that's because very often a new writer will write a scene. And the scene can be well written or interesting of itself, but it lacks any meaning. So it has no context. It doesn't fit with the character or what a character wants. It doesn't lead to some other plot event. It's just a scene on its own. Sometimes that scene on its own is just a nice description of a place. More often than not, it'll be a description of something between a man and a woman. Sometimes it's been a man and a woman and a woman. And other times it's just a description of a fight or a horror scene where somebody's stuck in a house, for instance, and being haunted by a ghost. Now, in many cases, as I say, those descriptions have been quite, sort of engaging of themselves, but I get to the end of them and it's like, what's the story? What does it mean? What is the relevance of it? So if you write a scene, and actually when you look at it, you think, what does that mean to my characters? Have I conveyed that to my reader? And you can't say yes to those questions or figure out the meaning of it, then go back and review it and think again about who is the main character, think about what do they want, think about what's stopping them from getting what they want, and then bring that scene back into context. Now I just have to tell you, I've been waving my hands around down here, which you can't see on the screen, which you're probably quite pleased about, but that will explain if I've been jiggling around, so apologies for that. So main point, if you've written a scene, make sure it fits your character and what they want. And that's the two things I'll be looking for there with the assessment.